thanks for tuning in. Just quick before we get started, I wanted to say that I cover so much in this video, from the endowment ceremony rituals to the symbols found on LDS buildings and temples to the translation of the Book of Mormon, just so much. And it's ties to Freemasonry and the occult and Satanism. So if you can just stick with me to the end, good information will be in this video. Unfortunately, I had to read a lot, and that is just quite simply because it's way too much information for me to memorize. But regardless of that, good information to know, and I'm just so glad that you tuned in. So here's the lowdown with the critics' position towards the LDS Church in regards to Freemasonry. The LDS temple ceremony has so many parallels to Masonic rites, and for very good reason, because Joseph Smith himself he introduced the rites in the LDS temple just 2 short months after becoming a Freemason himself. His brother Hiram and his father, Joseph Smith Sr., as well as Oliver Cowdery, among others, very closely related to him and close people in his life, they were all Freemasons. I have to add at this point, listen up. The rituals taken from Freemasonry could not have come from Solomon's time, as the Mormons claim and as the Mormons will tell you, because Masonry did not originate until the 1600s. So that's a major point right there. There is no way this goes back to Solomon's time, and there is absolutely no relation between the LDS temple ceremonies and the temple rituals that happened in the Bible and in Solomon's time. Nothing, not at all. They are completely different. Wanted to stress that. Also, they claim that it's sacred and not secret, but the rites within the temple, even though they say they're sacred but not secret, they are very much secret, and they have cult-like similarities. Up until the 1990s, initiates were required to make a blood oath. They discontinued it since then, but they also actually use the phrase guarded by solemn covenants and obligations of secrecy. So how is that not secret? Secret. Of course it's secret. And they can claim that it's sacred as well, but definitely secret. I want to give a quote from Fawn Brody's book, No Man Knows My History. She wrote a biography on Joseph Smith. And it says, the Mormon temple endowment ceremony is without a doubt taken from the Masonic ceremonies Joseph Smith participated in just weeks before he introduced the temple endowment. The grips, tokens, covenants, secret words, keys, etc. were word for word the same when first introduced. Members who were Masons previous to Joseph joining the fraternal order unashamedly referred to the Mormon endowment as celestial masonry. You'll find that in her book, page 279 through 283. Also, Heber C. Kimball himself, who was a Mason, said, we have the true masonry. The masonry of today is received from the apostasy which took place in the days of Solomon and David. They have now and then a thing that is correct, but we have the real thing. Interesting. Again, he went back to Solomon's time. No, like Masonry did not go back then at all. And the Old Testament temple rituals and what they did have zero to do with the endowment ceremonies or anything that goes on within Mormonism or Masonry for that matter. Quite the opposite, actually. Also, David Buerger says the clearest evidence of Masonic influence on the Nauvoo temple ceremony is a comparison of texts. 3 elements of the Nauvoo endowment and its contemporary Masonic ritual resemble each other so closely that they were sometimes identical. These are the tokens, signs, and the penalties. So that is found in his book, Mysteries of Godliness, A History of Mormon Temple Worship, Chapter 3, Joseph Smith's Ritual. Quite interesting. And then even today, the Masonic emblems such as the compass, square, level, pentagram, the all-seeing eye, sun, moon, stars, etc. There are more. They are displayed on the walls of the LDS temples, as well as the exterior of many Mormon buildings, especially in Salt Lake City, Utah. And this is interesting. The temple ceremonies were actually performed in the local Masonic halls in the early days of the church. Now I want to talk about Joseph Smith and his occult practices. He and his father were both involved in the occult practice known as money digging. This involved special rituals and ceremonies which were performed for the purpose of obtaining buried treasure thought to be guarded by evil spirits. Joseph would place this small special rock called a seer stone in his hat, pull the hat up to his face to block out all the light. By doing this, he claimed he could see supernaturally and would help those who were digging by locating the place where the treasure was buried and observing the spirits that were guarding it. Joseph Jr. himself admitted to being a money digger, though he said it was never very profitable for him. Look this up in History of the Church, Volume 3, page 29. He and his father's money digging continued well into the 1820s, at least until 1826, because on March 20th of that year, Joseph was arrested. And he was brought before the judge, and he was charged with being a glass looker and a disorderly person. The laws at that time had this thing called the Vagrant Act, and it defined a disorderly person as one who pretended to have a skill in the areas of palmistry, telling fortunes or discovering where lost goods might be found. And according to the records, he was found guilty by Justice Neely. He was guilty, but he didn't administer any penalty for the crime, and people think this was possibly because it was Joseph's first offense. But shortly after Joseph Smith discontinued this money digging stuff, he still kept his seer stone, and it was with the seer stone that he claimed to both find the golden plates and later produce the Book of Mormon. This was known by early converts, but has since been replaced with later accounts of the angelic visitor Moroni, and that whole story came into be, where the angel told him where they were and what to do with them and all of that. This transition was aided by downplaying the fact that Moroni was a dead Indian warrior and by referring to him as an angel. Former BYU professor and historian D. Michael Quinn writes, during this period from 1827 to 1830, Joseph Smith abandoned the company of his former money-digging associates, but continued to use for religious purposes the brown seer stone that he had previously employed in the treasure quest. His most intensive and productive use of this seer stone was in the translation of the Book of Mormon, but he also dictated several revelations to his associates through the stone. Early Mormonism and the Magic World View, D. Michael Quinn. Interesting, isn't it? So basically, instead of divine revelation through God and looking at the plates and actually translating them, all through Mormon documents and history, Joseph had his face in a hat with his brown stone in there, and that's how he supposedly translated the Book of Mormon. He didn't use any other method at all. In fact, you can read so many accounts with Oliver Cowdery and Emma and others where Joseph Smith just sat there with his head buried in the hat and he was dictating off whatever the Book of Mormon said. So clearly it was from his own imagination, right? This fact is supported by the LDS author Richard S. Van Wagner, who found this stone, the seer stone, still retained by the First Presidency of the LDS Church, was the vehicle through which the golden plates were discovered and the medium through which their interpretation came. He wrote that in his book, Sidney Rigdon, A Portrait of Religious Excess, Signature Books, Salt Lake City, page 57. Thus, we see that historians have documented a continuity between Joseph's early occultic practices and the origins of Mormonism. This link extends to the development of the LDS temple ceremony. So the fact that he was involved in all of this and money digging and glass looking and all of that was absolutely associated with occult and, looking for evil spirits and things. We already know that in his background. And then the use of that while supposedly translating the Book of Mormon was very evident. And I want to now move to another topic. Same topic, but this is really interesting. So historian D. Michael Quinn, who I just referred to, he outlines the following 10 essential characteristics common to both occult rituals and the Mormon temple ceremonies. So these are the things that the occult rituals and the Mormon temple ceremony have absolutely in common. They are revealed by God from the beginning, but distorted through apostasy. They place an emphasis on the worthiness of the initiates. They include washings and anointings, a new name, and garments. That's all in the Mormon ceremonies. They receive a new name in the temple, and that's the name you cannot tell anyone, and you have to keep it with you until your death, and that's the name that gets you into heaven one day. And then the temple garments, of course, Mormons wear, some people call them holy underwear, but they're temple garments that they wear on their person at all times. They have Masonic symbols on them, I will add, and they are given those as they become temple Mormons. Okay, moving back to the list, they emphasize vows of non-disclosure. There are both lesser and greater rituals. They feature presentation of the ritual through drama. They contain an oath of chastity requiring strict purity and virtue of the participants. They feature prominent use of the sun, moon, and stars as key symbols. The purpose of the ritual is to assist mortals to attain to godhood. They employ titles and offices of prophets, priests, and kings to those in leadership. So isn't that interesting that we see all of those very, very clearly in the Mormon temple rituals, and you see those exact same things in occult rituals. Very disturbing. Let's talk about the Masonic symbolism that runs through the story of the discovery of the golden plates. Basically, in the story of the Enoch myth of Royal Arch Freemasonry, this is their story within Freemasonry. Let's see how closely it ties to the story of Joseph Smith and the golden plates and all of that. Listen to this. In the Enoch myth of Royal Arch Freemasonry, in which the prophet Enoch, instructed by a vision, preserved the Masonic mysteries by carving them on a golden plate that he placed in an arched stone vault marked with pillars, to be rediscovered by Solomon. In the years to come, the prophet Enoch would play a central role in Smith's emerging cosmology. Smith's stories of his discoveries got more elaborate with time. In June 1829, he promised Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer, and Martin Harris that they would see not only the plates, but other marvelous artifacts. The Urim and Thummim attached to a priestly breastplate, the sword of Laban, and miraculous directors. Oliver Cowdery and Lucy Mack Smith later described 3 or 4 small pillars holding up the plates. Everything about this story, all of the artifacts that they listed, they had Masonic analogs. And then Oliver Cowdery and his father and brother were Royal Arch initiates. Interesting, isn't it? Because they would have known all about that. And this then goes into the story of the discovery of the golden plates. I don't think that we can ignore that. So that's a huge tie between Masonry, again, and Mormonism. Gerald and Sandra Tanner wrote this next section. I find very interesting. They are former LDS, very educated. They have a whole lot of information out there. But it's in regards to the Female Relief Society. Listen to this. This organization was the prophet's intention to attempt to expand Masonry to include the women of the church. That the Relief Society was organized in the Masonic Lodge Room, and only one day after Masonry was given to the men. It's not coincidence. Included in the actual vocabulary of Joseph Smith's counsel and instructions to the sisters were such words as ancient orders, examinations, decrees, candidates, secrets, lodges, rules, signs, tokens, order of the priesthood, and keys, all indicating that the society's orientation possessed Masonic overtones, no doubt. So Female Relief Society as well. I didn't realize that the origins of that prior to studying this topic had everything to do with Freemasonry as well. Let's get into the similarities of Masonry and the Endowment ceremony. The identical features, there's 5 of them. The 5 points of fellowship, the penalties invoked in the non-disclosure oaths, 2 grips or tokens, the symbols of the compass and the square, miscellaneous phrases such as "has it a name?" or 3 distinct knocks. Some have been changed since the origins of all of this, but it was all there and all the same at one point. And in addition to this, one of the signs disclosed during the endowment is similar to the Masonic sign of distress. So let's talk about the similarities in the ritual style. There are a lot. Using a set script, the rhythm of the language is often similar as well. Imparting signs, grips, and passwords to the initiates. Making oaths with the use of the Bible and offering prayer while kneeling at an altar. Vowing not to reveal ceremonial secrets. Using dialogues or catechisms to test the initiates or to solicit passwords. The appearance of trios. For example, in the endowment, you hear Elohim, Jehovah, and Michael. And then in Masonry, you'll hear Worshipful Master, Senior Warden, and Junior Warden. Repeating orders and reports 2 or 3 times verbatim. Knocking 3 times at the entrance. Reciting 3 syllables in a sacred language, Adamic in the endowment and Hebrew in Masonry. Giving the initiate a new name. Acting out a ritual drama in which the initiate represents a biblical figure, Adam and Eve in the endowment, and Hiram Abiff in Masonry. Passing from one room to another. In both Masonic and early Mormon temples, different rooms were decorated around different themes, which you very much find in the Mormon temples. They both use an apron, wear an apron. They both alter how ceremonial clothing is worn to signify advancement by degrees. In Masonry, the apron is folded down to a different way for each degree, and in the endowment, the robes of the priesthood are shifted from one shoulder to the other. They both use symbols such as the compass and the square to convey moral messages. Those are both found on temple garments, as I believe I mentioned before. Delivering a lecture to review the ceremony and expound on its meaning. In the Royal Arch degree, wearing priestly robes of an Old Testament pattern and passing through a veil. You have that in the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry, and then of course in the Mormon temple rituals, they definitely wear all white and the robes and everything. And then, yeah, the veil is a big part of the Mormon ceremony as well. But in the Mormon one, they have the veil, it has holes in it, and a Christ-like figure stands behind it, and a hand comes through, and they practice the grips and tokens and all of that. So it's really interesting. It's when you watch it as an outsider, it's kind of shocking to see that people even involve themselves with this kind of a thing. It's very eerie, and it definitely feels very occultic. Also, another Mormon Masonic parallel related to ritual style is the use of Masonic symbols in 19th century Mormon architecture and art. This includes the all-seeing eye, the inverted 5-point star, and the beehive. And that only lists 3, but there's multiple others as well, which moves me to the next point. I want to talk all about the symbols that you'll find on the Mormon buildings and temples and the History Museum in Salt Lake City and more. Before I say that, I did want to make this one point here. Mormons and Masons moved almost simultaneously to drop one common feature of their respective rites. 3 years before the LDS Church omitted the Masonic style penalties from their endowment, Masonic authorities in England omitted penalties from their rituals as well. Coincidence? Interesting. So, moving on to those symbols. There is a universal sign of Satan, and it's the symbol of opposition to Christ. If you Google the Satanic Bible, you will see it on there. It is an upside-down star with circles around it. The goat head is in the center. It's very disturbing, but this very same star can be found on the LDS buildings in Salt Lake City, and the Nauvoo Temple also has this same star image. This pentagram is all over the Salt Lake Temple, above the doors and most of the side windows. It is also found very prominent in its more evil form, where the bottom part is elongated on the Eagle Gate at Temple Square and on the Logan Temple. I'm going to show these all in pictures so that you can see what I'm talking about. Listen to this from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, page 762 through 763. In the science of magic, the pentalpha is called the holy and mysterious pentagram. The pentagram is the star of magicians. By virtue of the number 5, it has great command over evil spirits because of its 5 double triangles and its 5 acute angles within and its 5 obtuse angles without, so that its interior pentangle contains in it many great mysteries. I'm going to continue. In symbolism, an inverted figure always signifies a perverted power. The average person does not even suspect the occult properties of emblematic pentacles. Interesting, because there are inverted pentagrams all over the Salt Lake City Temple, among other Mormon buildings. On this subject, the great Paraclesis has written, "No doubt many will scoff at the seals, their characters, and their uses, which are described in these books, because it seems incredible to them that metals and characters which are dead should have any power and effect." It's an eerie quote. A good instance of this practice is found on the pentagram, or 5-pointed star, made of 5 connected lines. This figure is the time-honored symbol of the magical arts. The pentagram is used extensively in black magic. The star may be broken at one point by not permitting the converging lines to touch. It may be inverted by having one point down and 2 up, or it may be distorted by having the points of varying lengths, like the longer point with that one star that I mentioned previously. When used in black magic, the pentagram is called the sign of the cloven hoof, or the footprint of the devil. The star with 2 points upward is also called the goat of Mendez, because the inverted star is the same shape as the goat's head. When the upright star turns and the upper point falls to the bottom, it signifies the fall of the morning star. You'll find this in Secret Teachings of All Ages. And going back to the goat of Mendez, Baphomet, which is the goat of Mendez, was indeed a common medieval form of the word Mahomet, and that not only meant a false prophet, but a demon. Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, page 124. So extremely disturbing stuff. I just want to ask, why are these symbols found they're recognized worldwide to be related to witchcraft and satanic worship and the occult, and you'll find them all over the Salt Lake Temple and other Mormon LDS buildings near the temple, among other places as well. Why isn't the cross the symbol of Christianity? It's recognized worldwide to be related to Christianity, and you will not find it anywhere on any Mormon building. It's very interesting and very disturbing. I wanted to end the video with a couple of verses. Matthew 16:24 says, "Then said Jesus unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." And Luke 14:27 says, "And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." The cross is absolutely central to the Bible. It's central to Christianity. The cross is exactly where everything happened, where Jesus paid it all, and we are able to come unto salvation and know God through the cross and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I wanted to make this video because I feel like it's very important to be aware of these things, to know the background, to know what Joseph Smith was involved in, to know Mormonism all over the place, just to see that they're still showing these symbols, and all of this stuff is very evident all throughout Mormonism up until this day. So I just encourage anybody who is watching to, you can reach out to me. I would love to talk to you. If you want to watch any of my other videos on many Mormon topics, click the subscribe button below. There's so much more to come. And I've already made videos on very important topics that need to be people need to be made aware of. So I encourage you to watch those, and stay tuned for future videos as well. But I do not want you to leave without knowing that there is absolute hope in biblical Christianity. There is a God, and He loves you, and I would love to talk to you about this more. But without making this video too much longer, I just wanted to say God bless you all. Reach out to me. Send me a private email. If you are searching, I would love to talk to you. So my prayer is that all of you know Jesus Christ is your personal Savior, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. God bless.